So happy 2023 NFL schedule release day. Okay, really? It's almost like
Yay.
Christmas Day because you know how on Christmas Eve your parents might allow you to open one gift? So,
Yeah, like all right,
so the league
okay.
allowed us to open one gift yesterday, right, Jarvis?
Yeah, just a little
Yeah,
bit. Just one gift.
just
That's
one
always
gift.
cool. Yeah.
Exactly. So we opened the gift that told us that the Falcons would be in London taking on the Jaguars in week 4 of this upcoming season. Now it appears that we have two more gifts early Christmas morning, i.e., early NFL schedule day, of course, locally. And now I think there are multiple reports out there that the Falcons indeed will host the Panthers in week 1 of the season. And also now a report out of the Athletic that the Falcons look like they're going to also host the Packers in week 2. That's out of their Green Bay bureau. So should be an interesting way to start the season. Kind of exciting to be able to start the season at home with 2 games in a row. So first of all, Jarvis, your take on the Falcons having the opportunity to start the season potentially with back-to-back home games.
Yeah, this is cool, right? Because when you think about like the pathway to the postseason, because I think
Yes.
that's going to be the theme
That's the
this year.
goal.
Pathway
Yep.
to the postseason, like as far as for the Falcons to be able to get there, it's going to have to be through winning this division. And I think that being that the number one game on the schedule is going to be the Carolina Panthers, and you're don't necessarily know who the quarterback is going to be because Scott Fitterer is kind of like, oh yeah, going into the season it's going to be Andy Dalton, and then Frank Reich is like, oh yeah, whenever he's ready, he's going to come in. I was like, all right, here we go. So you don't know it may be Andy Dalton who the Falcons may be going up against. So I think that it's good on two parts, right? It's the divisional opponent. You're going to be able to see where you are, in the beginning of the season, and also you might be facing a rookie quarterback or a bad quarterback. So, like, those are some of the things that that you have to be at least kind of get excited for. Not saying that it's a guaranteed dub, but there are some factors in this game that the Falcons should be up, no doubt about it, especially opening up in Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, and I like the concept of it because we believe that the path to the postseason is likely for the Falcons going to be one where it's winning the division. The
Yeah.
NFC overall is still chocked full of heavy hitters. I mean, you look at the NFC East, and you could argue that each and every team coming out of the NFC East could potentially make the playoffs this season. So with that in mind, and only one of them being able to come out as the divisional champion might be an easier path for the Falcons to actually just win the NFC South. That said, you get your first test out of the gates with the Carolina Panthers, and you can call it a test because everything at this point in the NFC South is a toss-up, except under center. I don't care what Frank Reich says. I don't care what the reports are coming out of Carolina. You are not going to make me believe that you did everything under the sun but bring Jesus back
Yes.
from cracking the sky
Yes.
to get Bryce Young. And then
David Tepper gonna make that decision for them. Like, I don't give
yeah.
a crap what they say. Yes,
Yeah,
you're
the
right.
only
You're
way
so
to
right.
me that happens is literally if one of two things. If somehow, and God forbid it happens, but somehow Bryce Young gets injured somewhere during the course of training camp or preseason game. And again, I say God forbid because nobody wants that to happen to that guy. You want the best of the Panthers to show up with the best
Yeah.
of the Falcons
You wanna
game
see
1,
it, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But other than something like that, and of course, Malik Willis is a friend to the show. We rock with him. He's a local guy, but we saw or kind of seen the writing on the wall with the Titans. Unless
Yeah.
it's a situation like that where you truly don't feel like your guy is ready, it's Bryce Young under center week 1. That is my thought. I am actually more interested to see how maybe the new look offense for the Falcons, given Bijan Robinson, like what are we going to see from the Panthers defense and their ability to stop the run now that we've got the Falcons have that guy in addition to Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson. That's what I'm interested in seeing. Also interested in seeing what their secondary is able to do. Like, okay, JC Horn and company, are you guys going to be able to have as much of an impact? I put that in quotes, but as much of an impact as you had at times last season, now that Drake London is going into his second year working with Desmond Ridder. Hopefully Kyle Pitts will be back and healthy. And we know that Derek Brown wrecked the hell out of Marcus Mariota last season. So
Yes, he
I'm
did.
really interested to see what kind of work Desmond
led the
Ridder's going to
team in
put in.
tackles.
And now, yeah, exactly.
Double-digit
So now
tackles
we've
and
got a
D
Matthew
tackles.
Bergeron and we've got a better O-line. So will somebody be able to stop that dude from wrecking camp against Desmond Ridder. And I think we'll be able to see kind of out of the gates how Desmond Ridder has evolved as well in his ability to read defenses and kind of evade them and buy himself some time to get to his weapons. So yeah, I kind of like it out of the gates just to kind of see and test the waters in the division. I think that'll be a cool thing as well. Now,
Let me
like I
add
said,
one thing before
yes,
you move
yes.
on to you. I think that the big piece right there, the big question mark for the Falcons on offense, like you mentioned, kind of touched on, Kyle Pitts. Like, we don't know if he's going to be ready. Like, if you say you telling me he limping around in the spring tee, like, that is not good. So I think that, having a guy like Jonnu Smith, yeah, that's cool. You can work with that, but like, no, like you need all your weapons. You need your guns. You need every bullet that you actually can gather up. To go out there and try to get a win in the division against a divisional opponent. So.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the big question for the Falcons on offense is whether or not Kyle Pitts is going to be ready to go week one, regardless of who's that quarterback for the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, and that's a great point too, because if you don't have him ready for week one, or it appears that you may not have him ready for, I'll call it quarter one, because we were talking about that even yesterday. Like, our hope is that he will actually suit up for week one and he'll have breakout games. And then when he gets back to a familiar place, London, where he got his first touchdown, maybe then you'll see him have that crazy game. You hope that London is not his first game by any stretch. But if he doesn't come out week one, I agree with you. I'm interested to see, since Jonnu Smith is kind of highly touted, like, what are you going to be able to do? Because then that speaks to the depth of the weapons in that wide receiver and tight end room. Now, the other thing that came out that I thought was interesting, and I think it just kind of depends on what side of the fence you're kind of sitting on, as to how much stock you put in strength of schedule with no one having touched the field. And especially in this division where there's been so much upheaval for every single team. But the Falcons have been calculated as, or tabulated as, being the team with the easiest strength of schedule going into 2023. And I was thinking to myself, okay, like we just talked about, had the Panthers. They have what's going to be a new look Packers team in week 2. And so you think about, like, okay, does this give them a decided advantage having the strength of schedule as it is, and maybe having a couple of, like you said, not truly cupcake games? You don't want to call anything that in the NFL, but darn it, you can win these games. You can win these games.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on strength of schedule and whether or not the Falcons have an advantage to kind of get out of the gates quickly?
I don't buy it on. I look at it like this. I don't buy it on May 11th. It's May 11th. Like you can't. Don't talk to me about strength of schedule on May 11th. Like, because we have surprise. There are surprise teams every year. That's how the NFL is constructed. See, they want everybody to be evenly balanced as possible. They want everybody to be able to be competitively balanced throughout the league, because that's. At the end of the day, people want to make money. Like, the only way you can make money in this league is win games, or make more money. Let me say this. Like, you want to make money as an NFL owner, but making more money and getting to the upper echelon and being able to talk trash to your compadres when y'all have NFL owners meetings and that you won a Super Bowl, it's built for that. So I think that on May 11th, I'm not buying strength of schedule, but once the summer gets here, once teams start getting on the field, get on the practice field and start playing in some preseason games, I feel like there's some things that you can draw and say, okay, hey, Jordan Love is out here, doing his thing in training camp. He's been looking really well. He's been looking good, or he balled out in the first game. Okay, there might not necessarily be a cupcake game for the Falcons in game 2. So all of those things, there are many factors that comes into play when you start talking about strength of schedule. And I think that a lot of people put a little bit too much stock in the spring, about, the schedule should be all good. No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't work like that. I just find it interesting. That's almost like the conversations that you have when it's like, oh, this team is destined, because of all the moves that they made in the draft or in the offseason, to actually be able to make a run to the Super Bowl. Really? I mean, really? That. So yeah, to me, that's kind of that same conjecture, if you will. But what is not conjecture, I think, is an article that I thought was interesting. So I shared that with you from ESPN Plus, and it was entitled "Key Intel on All 32 Teams." Of course, we were just looking at the key intel from the 2023 NFL Draft for the Falcons. Right. And the quote from ESPN staff writer Jeremy Fowler was this. He said, Taking a running back at number 8 overall isn't trendy, but some teams that he's spoken with think Bijan Robinson at number 8 signified a boiling point. Here's the logic. Teams typically draft first rounders with the second contract in mind. Is the player in question a long-term solution at the position? But because longevity is a factor in the devaluing of running backs, taking the second
Mm-hmm.
contract off the table and embracing the possibilities with an elite back can be freeing. So, that said, do you think that maybe that solidifies that kind of mindset, if you will, or the rationale behind why the Falcons went Bijan at 8 kind of signifies or solidifies that, yeah, they're in win now mode?
Oh, absolutely. That's you talking about a sense of urgency. We talked about leading up to the draft here about how the Falcons have been uber aggressive, being able to go out there and go get guys. We didn't necessarily agree with all of the guys that they brought in, but hey, it makes sense, right? You're trying to get your defense better. Like you bring in better players, regardless of position, right? Regardless of whatever position they play, as long as they fit that mold of what the Falcons are looking for, then they bring them in. And money is not necessarily a factor, and that's okay because they haven't been able to spend money like that. So I think the first offseason in which they had real money to go out and go get real quality players that they want to have in here, and they want to have them around for quite a couple of years or so. I think that going into the draft, the Bijan Robinson pick was the pick that made sense for what they were trying to do. And that they're trying to win games, T, because this is 2 back-to-back seasons of 7-10. That's not going to cut it. Like, they came in here to win, and that's what Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith are trying to do. And making that decision to draft Bijan Robinson absolutely confirms that.
Yeah, and you can't be overly concerned about a second contract because now that you're going into year 3, I mean, a second contract for Bijan Robinson is like 4 years away. In the league, 7 years is nobody's guarantee. So you just got to move on and say, hey, we're looking to win now and move forward. And then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We're going to talk more about Bijan Robinson tomorrow. Got a couple other thoughts that came from a GM. And also, Jarvis and I will get our first sneak peek at Bijan Robinson this weekend. Can't wait to tell you guys about that as the Falcons kick off rookie minicamp. So exciting times out at Flowery Branch and exciting times for you guys as well, hopefully, because you'll give us your feedback. I mean, what do you guys think about the potential for the Falcons to kick off this season with a divisional foe in the Carolina Panthers? What do you guys think about the fact that, oh my, we are already here at rookie minicamp and we get our first sighting of not just Bijan Robinson, but the guy who is going to help the O-line in protecting him in Matthew Bergeron amongst the other rookies. So don't forget, everydayers, tell us all your thoughts. Drop them in the comments if you're checking us out on YouTube. You can DM us if you're checking us out on wherever you get your podcast and you want to share your thoughts, because you know what? Here at ATL Day Ones, we always appreciate that you got something to say.